topic in front of us called The Better Way. And Chip, would you like to, why don't we just get straight into that? What is the better way and what's this all about?
What is the better way? So the big deal here, guys, and the key walk away message for today is to do yourself a favor and figure out a way to be investing in your team and in your culture every day, every week, because it's the total game changer. So I love, there's a quote by Peter Drucker. Peter Drucker is was around forever, but Peter Drucker said, or is attributed to have said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And what do you guys think about that? When you hear culture eats strategy for breakfast, do you think that's true? How many people think that's true? Put your hand up. How many people think that's not true? Put your hand up now. So everybody agrees, right?
I have my hand up. Only reason why is I've chatted with a couple people in the past few weeks that would disagree with this. Unfortunately, they're not on the call today. And that is because they're like, in order to drive my profit and just call it my results, which profit is one of them, but they were chatting, Chip, about the pragmatic results. They were like, I'm going to build a strategy. I'm going to build some BHAGs. And I'm going to build the how-to executable plan to just drive that profit. And so they would contest you on that. So, I
would suggest that the research strongly disagrees. The research strongly disagrees with that. And we'll walk through this a little bit. But I would suggest that even for those of us that say we agree intellectually with the fact that culture beats strategy, our weekly schedule, our how we use our time and how we invest in our team does not demonstrate that I really, really believe that. So while I may say that I believe that culture beats strategy, my schedule and my investment in my company does not reflect that I really believe that. Let me give you an example why. So how many employees do you think, what percentage of employees would do more if they felt more appreciated? What do you guys think? 50%? Less?
What do you think, Greg?
Much higher.
Higher? Higher? Who says higher? Thumbs up if it's higher. Okay. So 70% of employees said they would do more if they felt more appreciated. But the challenge is, what do you do to make people feel more appreciated, right? Here's the challenge with that. So people, this is why people institute things like Employee of the Week, right? Because they want people to feel appreciated. What happens with Employee of the Week though? After you've done it for 2 or 3 months, it becomes burdensome and people are like, oh, I got to vote for Employee of the Week. Is that really making people feel appreciated? No, it's just another program. Right? So part of the challenge for us is when you're looking at this whole thing of saying, how do I get a bump in engagement, right? How do I get a bump in, how do I really invest in my culture in meaningful ways that is really going to get me a return on my investment, right? Because when we do some of the numbers and we take a look at it, what do you think is the impact of employee engagement and investing in things like leadership? What do you think the impact of that is on the long-term revenue growth of your company?
Anybody have an idea? You can shoot out. There's no.
Well, there is a research answer to it, but yes.
Love to hear your thoughts.
We're all just, you can all just guess here. What do you think?
What do you think, Dan?
Over a period of 10 years, over a period of 10 years, what do you think the difference would be in a company that has highly engaged employees, that has a culture that is really strong? What do you think the difference is in revenue growth?
20%.
Compared to an average company.
Chip, Dan was thinking 20%.
20%. Anybody else?
What do you think, Pete?
Yeah, I would probably think 10 to 20%.
10 to 20%. Anyone else? Any other guesses?
I think it's higher. I would think probably close to 40, 50.
40, 50%. You're getting closer. So with they
I'm gonna say 70 to 80% because I think it makes a significant impact.
yeah. So the average growth, so they surveyed thousands of companies, and companies that scored very highly for engagement and for high from a cultural perspective, on average over 11 years, they grew by 686%. The companies that were average grew by 150%. So high engagement, cultures that are focused on really helping people feel like they belong and they're making a difference, right? Produced 4 times as much revenue growth as the average company.
Isn't that shocking, Chip? Like,
It's unbelievable,
possible?
right?
Yeah.
So when you say culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? So the reality is too, it's like saying, okay, it's also how hard is it to come up with a new strategy? It's hard, it's work, right? But can your competitors come up with a new strategy? Absolutely, right? Can your competitors knock off the strategy that you just executed? Absolutely. And are they going to be watching you to see that? For sure, right? Culture is way harder to imitate, way harder to replicate. It's a way better moat, right, for your business. So the challenge is that in order to be investing in your culture, if you're just doing the same things again and again, like a pizza day or something that is predictable, right, or that you've done before, the chances of it giving you that bump of people feeling genuinely appreciated, for example, which a lot of those things, they're good things to do and they're absolutely need to be part of your plan, but we need to be thinking broader and more specifically about how to really engage our people and make sure they feel cared for and make sure they feel like their contribution is appreciated, right? And we also have to be paying attention to a number of other factors we'll take you through here. So, but when we're talking about the better way, right? We're doing it now against a backdrop of a particular challenge that we're faced with in Ontario, which I think is important stats for us to think about here. Because, you know, supply and demand, the labor shortage in Ontario, we're only going to have 1% labor growth in the next 3 years. 21% of construction workers are going to retire by 2024, right? So what does that put us at in terms of a net difference, guys? 21% increase, 21% retiring, and 1% growth over, let's say, 3 years means we're at a net deficit. If we think it's bad now, we're down by 17% more, right? So if you think about your crew now, if I got 10 guys, that means 2 of them are gone. What does that do to the overall market?
And we have this other thing, Chip, that is a big talk of the town, but has data around it, and that's called the Great Resignation. You want to chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So the Great Resignation, how many people have heard of the Great Resignation? Right, bunch of articles, other stuff. What they're talking about is that the whole COVID thing and what happened with COVID is all of a sudden people are saying, you know what, I've got more choices than I thought I had before. I can choose whether or not I'm going to work somewhere or not, right? I can choose. I've got more flexibility. And so currently they've had 11.5 million people quit in North America in the past 16 months. They say 50%, almost 50%, so 48% of people that are in jobs today are actively looking for another job. 38% of those plan to change within the next 6 months, right? That's like huge impact for us, right? You know, so if you lose a couple of guys, even for a lot of you, that's a huge challenge, right? And so just looking and thinking about this, there are actually some important strategic things you can do to be ahead of this, right? The other thing that's happening too is millennials and Gen Z they're reframing the work situation. So I'm looking around and saying, so we're all pretty well baby boomers here, right? And baby boomers just suck it up and work harder, right? Baby boomers understand that, you know, you're supposed to work, and that if you work hard, you will do well in life. Well, that's not what millennials think, right? That's not what Gen Zs think.
This is interesting, Chip, because this next slide here that you have here for us, I was just thinking, it's one thing to think about this for our internal people, but even taking this whole piece around a better way for my subcontractors. Say I have a subcontracting model, or part of it that's that model, right? Or my suppliers, et cetera. Can you explain a little bit about this whole piece about clarity, alignment, and engagement, and just walk us through these big pillars of building a culture that's a magnet that ultimately attracts and then retains great people?
So the big idea here is saying that if it's back to saying, if we're building a place that's a great place to work, then the people that are engaged there are actively telling their friends, wow, you got to come and check this place out. Wow, this place is great. They value my input. They ask for my input. They act on my input. This company, what they're doing, their strategy is good. People feel they are clear on what we're doing. They're clear on what's most important for us. The company is aligned. You don't have, how many times do you hear the stories? So, which I hear all the stories all the time about saying, okay, the field dislikes the designers, and the field dislikes being dictated to by the designers. The designers are pissed off at what the field workers are doing, because the field workers are trying to use their judgment to get something done, but they end up designing something or changing the design, and there's no connection, there's no alignment. Effectively, there's no feedback mechanisms for designers to get feedback from the field, and for field to get feedback from the designers. That's an alignment issue, right? Well, what does that cause in a company? It causes disengagement, right? And the disengagement happens because people feel like, well, what's the point anyway? I can't make a difference. I can't get this fixed, and nobody really cares about it. Senior management doesn't care about it, right? My boss doesn't care about it. They just say, shut up and get to work, right? So who cares whether the fact that I put, so my daughter came up with an example. She's a designer, and she was showing me this latch that the field guys put in from her construction job, right? And it looks terrible. And the customer was not happy, and they had to go back and fix it, right? But but there's no effort in the company to fix that systemic issue and make sure that it never happens again. Well, it's a lack of alignment, right? Well, what happens with your subtrades? Well, when you have a subtrade that goes in that is not culturally aligned with you, that's not committed to the same things that you're committed to, they deliver a subpar customer experience. So sure, you may make better margin on them in the short term, but you're not going to get the same level of customer referrals you will by working with a subtrade that is highly aligned with you, that understand your value proposition, that understands what you're about and is committed to delivering on it. But to do that takes more work, right? In the short term, it's going to take you more work to get great subtrades. It's going to take you more work to keep those subtrades on board. And you're also going to have to figure out a way so that your business model is set up so that those subtrades can do better working with you than they can with anybody else, right? Because that's all part of how you build this whole thing from the ground up so that you're building an unstoppable business. Okay?
Yeah.
So clarity
Chip,
and alignment are two of the key pieces, and engagement. It's actually interesting. I was just chatting with Darren about this beforehand. He said, well, don't clarity and alignment or don't they automatically come with increased engagement? I said, no, they don't come automatically with increased engagement. How many people of you have people that are well-meaning, that are out in the field, that are trying to do a good job, but that don't understand what your company's all about? So the result of which is they're making decisions that are, for example, maybe nickel and diming, or looking to save a little bit of money instead of focusing on what's most important for the customers and delivering a wow customer experience, which is a whole different equation, right?
The other piece about that, Chip, is because actually, if I recall, I was flipping it the other way, is like, if you have really good clarity from the, say, the top down, for lack of a better word, but from, say, the owner through to management around vision, purpose, values, value descriptors, how I live that out, and I have a team that's aligned, I was asking, then automatically shouldn't engagement be there? And there's nuance in there too, because you can also have poor clarity and engagement, but you have a real eager beaver, like a really person who subscribes to hustle and has great integrity, and they're a highly engaged employee, even though, and it's masking our poor clarity and poor alignment. And we're going to walk through, Chip's going to show a slide later, walk us through a flip chart of what that looks like.
Well, what you have in that case is a highly motivated individual who's working really hard, who's not driving the business nearly the way they could, right?
Chip, you got some you got some stats.
So I've got some more stats to share with you guys. We're going to flip through the stats relatively quickly so that we can spend more time on things, because we just want to walk through this to keep building our conviction about how much impact this had, right? So organizations with a great culture, where people feel like the work is meaningful, where the employees are highly engaged, where we pay attention to job fit, where we have strong leadership, it outperforms our peers, right? And at the same time, it acts as a magnet to attract other talent, right? So this is absolutely a key deliverable, a key investment you want to make. And when I think about this, I'm like saying, okay, great. If this is a key strategy for me, I need to spend time on it every week, right? Now the time can look different, right? The time may be making sure I take 15 minutes to touch base with everyone on my field team over the course of a month, right? To get their input, to make sure I'm saying, wow, you know what? I heard from your boss that you did a great job on this project. Thanks for your contribution, right? A lot of people can live for a good week or two on one genuine compliment, right? And it's way more meaningful for some people to receive a compliment that way versus even to be recognized in front of a group, right? To know that their boss or their boss's boss, right, saw and noticed something that they did is huge from an appreciation and a recognition perspective. Do you want to flip that one, Darren, to the next one?
Yeah, this is the next one. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry with that. Okay, so what's the other impact too? Culture delivers on a great customer experience, right? Through engaged employees. 79% of employees at companies with above average customer experience are highly engaged in their job, right? So it's a key chicken and an egg thing. You get a better customer experience when you have highly engaged employees, right? It's interesting on that side. One of the biggest things that's actually motivating for people is feeling like they can solve problems for customers, right? That actually gets a bump in employee engagement. When they feel like they don't have to go back to their boss and check in everything, but they actually have some discretion to make decisions, right? I had the privilege of doing a whole bunch of work with a very high-end hotel, right? And one of the big things, they invested, 7%, 8% of their overall budget per year was invested in training employees, customer service training. And one of their big things was the mantra for their frontline customer service people is do whatever it takes to make sure the customer's happy, right? Now, obviously, they had to have that be trained in how to do that in context, right? But the company, it's Four Seasons Hotels, right? They are legendary for their customer service. And the employees are highly engaged in delivering a great customer service. Now, you don't have to give that same latitude, but it is empowering your employees to make things right for a customer, right? Okay, sets up the organization for future success. More than 50% of the respondents said corporate culture impacts productivity, creativity, profitability, firm value, and growth rates. All right, again, we're singing to the choir here, guys, but I think the issue is saying this doesn't really get reflected in, we don't have a strategy on how we're going to drive culture, right? We gravitate towards strategies that I can buy a new piece of equipment, I can run a new marketing strategy. I can increase my prices. I can adjust some other things, change my quoting, right? Those are all stroke of the pen strategies. Those are easy to do, right? Investing in your culture, investing in your team takes time, effort, right? But it's not rocket science. And
Chip,
that's
I'm going
what-
to show a slide coming up here, and I wonder if you could relate it to an example of a company that you and I worked with, without mentioning names, of course, but just around the productivity, the profitability, even employee retention, and of course, a delighted client. We have some data here, but this is a real life example that you and I experienced together.
Yeah. So profitability, companies in the top quartile of engagement, right? Access 50% higher total shareholder return, right? That's bottom line profit, right? You're going to get a bump in profitability, right? If you're in the top quartile for engagement, right? Productivity, they get 18% higher productivity, right? 60% higher quality. What's higher quality mean? Less callbacks, less rework, right? Better customer experience. They get 34% higher customer sat. Companies with highly engaged employees, they get 12 to 34% higher customer sat, right? And the whole story here is saying, so if I have, on average, if 6 out of 10 customers are satisfied with my service versus being where the customer is delighted with my service, what's the difference between a customer that's satisfied and a customer that's delighted? Customer that's satisfied tells no one. Really, they're happy. Will they come back? Maybe not, right? A customer that's delighted will come back and they're going to tell people, right? Same thing with customers that are unhappy, they're going to tell people too. But customers that are delighted are happy, right? We had a situation whereby we were actually building this tool to share about the project that a customer had done. And the customer came to us and said, hey, wow, can I buy 20 of these so I can give them to all my friends? What do you think the answer is? Absolutely. Right? So huge impact and value to having customers that are delighted. And to aim for anything less than delighted, we're actually wasting our time, right? Because we're investing a bunch of time in just getting them to being satisfied. And a satisfied customer is not a great ambassador for you, is not a great referral source. They're just satisfied. Okay?
Cool. So Chip, we have you came across this cool calculator. Before we actually do the work, we just want to let you know that if it's appropriate for you, we've shown you a lot of data now, and now is an opportunity to actually look at real numbers of what happens when we get a bump in our engagement, of course, that has clarity and alignment, all these pieces built into with our staff, and how does it affect bottom line results. Chip has got a calculator here we're going to walk through. Chip, did you want to offer any questions or any preamble to that before we show how that works?
So all this does is it takes all the data and it puts it, so here's all the data. These are a bunch of the data points. And if you guys want a copy of all the data and all the stuff we've sent you, we've actually just sent you a small portion of the stuff that we dug up on this. We got a boatload of different studies and different reports. But here's what this calculator does is it takes into account and says, okay, a highly engaged workforce, all the stats say that there will be a 17% increase in productivity. A highly engaged workforce and results in anywhere from 24 to 60% lower turnover rates, right? A highly engaged workforce, right? It reduces absenteeism, right? Which is things like sickness for work, other things where people are missing work. It'll dramatically decrease your absenteeism. So then what it does is it takes all this stuff together and says, great, you can enter in a number of employees. So we can get there and say, so let's do a small company here. Let's say 5 people. So if we have 5 people and let's say an average salary let's say 50,000 bucks. And let's say our employee turnover rate, let's say we've had a number of challenges here. So our employee turnover rate here has been 40%. That's historically. So on the right-hand side, that shows you and said, okay, the potential bump in productivity, even in a company that size, is $42,500 in increased productivity. Turnover costs, you're going to spend way less time looking for people, bringing them up to speed, and wasting money on that side. So you could save $63,000 on that side. Even the decrease in absenteeism is $22,000. So your total savings, potential savings, right, is $120,000 a year. And here's a question for you guys. This $120,000 per year, it's not a gross savings, it's a net savings. So this would go straight to the bottom line, straight to profit, right? Because it's increased productivity, it's decreased cost from a turnover perspective, and decreased cost from absenteeism. So it's all straight to profit. And that's on a company of 5 employees. All right, so now let's go to a medium-sized company, Darren. Let's say 25 people. Right, and let's say on that side, we're paying a little more. We're a bigger company here. Let's say we're doing $65,000 a year. And let's say we've done a better job with turnover here. So we are 25% turnover. We're still losing some people every year, but so even for a company that size, you're saying, okay, the increased productivity could be $275,000 a year. Your decreased turnover costs with someone that size is another $250,000, and your decreased absenteeism is $143,000. So your total impact is $650,000. Now, I think it'd probably be way more helpful for you to look at your particular situation and tailor the answers for your situation and say, okay, well, reality is, you know what? I think that cost for turnover is a little high given our industry, but we'd want to have a conversation about that because I think we often underestimate what it really costs us to have turnover, right? As an example, or what it's really costing us to have absenteeism, right? How many people are end up juggling their schedule, 10 times because guys aren't showing up or not showing up on time or last minute letting you know about something. So what is helpful, I think, is to work through this, for example, and tailor the numbers for your situation so that you can look at it and understand, okay, what would this really look like for me? And what would be possible for me, right? Based on the stats. Or you might say, you know what? We are not at a place, we've got people that are partially engaged, right? So we're partway down the road of full engagement, but they're not fully engaged. I don't know whether I told you guys the story. When I was working as a manager at Eagles Flight a long time ago, so I was managing and I had all the strategies down pat. We'd seen a dramatic improvement in our productivity and the effectiveness for the manufacturing company I was managing. We'd gone up dramatically and we were just we were shipping out 60, 70 different things every month, and each shipment contained like 150, 200 different pieces. And we were doing it flawlessly every single time. Well, I had a conversation with my boss after we'd done this, and we had like the SOP manuals all written and all the other stuff done for this. And I said, okay, great. I've got the business running fine. What do I do now? And he said to me, now you figure out how to lead in such a way that people will break down walls for you. And thus began my journey of figuring out how to lead in such a way that I got people's full engagement, where I got people able to do even more than they thought they could do because they were so excited and so passionate and so wanting to make a difference at work, right? It probably took me, I'm still learning how to do it. It took me about 10 years to even start on that journey. But it's been a hugely helpful thing. And that's why I think, guys, this is a huge game changer for your business And I think we underestimate the impact and the value of it. And because we underestimate the impact and the value, we don't invest the time in it that we should. So I just wanted to show you a couple other pieces here that I think would be helpful in terms of creating context for how we're looking at this problem and figuring out how to address it. Is that helpful, Darren, or should we go to questions first?
Well, I was going to say any questions and then maybe walk through us your flip chart there.
Yep.
But yeah, guys, any questions on this calculator, on the data? How did we get the data? How does it actually work? Maybe even what have you realized? Chip, I was thinking maybe it's helpful even walking through someone. So an example of those real numbers, what does it actually cost me to invest in to grow that engagement of that team so that I can get those results? One way of paying for that, of course, it takes time, but it also takes maybe some investment to actually do that with help, et cetera. You want to walk through that potentially, but first just want to offer.
So from a practical perspective, right? If you look at that and say, so if I have a more highly engaged team, right, I'm going to be able to deliver a better customer experience. If I can deliver a better customer experience, it should be reflected in my rates, right? So potentially I should be looking at raising my rates, right? And that's part of the equation. If I'm delivering a better customer experience, that's clearly head and shoulders above what my competitors are doing, then that should be reflected there. If I raise my rates by even something like $5 an hour, $10 an hour, right? It has a dramatic impact on the profitability of the company and pays for this type of initiative, right? Let alone, and then the productivity gains and the improvement in engagement, right? It's interesting that way we did, because the reality is that engagement from your team, you can get a dramatic improvement in the engagement from your team just by starting down this road, right? So the whole thing about driving employee engagement and driving a culture where people really feel valued and they're able to do their best work, that's a continuous journey. It's not like you do it once and then you can forget about it, or you do it for 2 or 3 months and then you leave it. It's more about saying, no, you need to build it as part of your core strategy for building your company long-term, because the payoffs are huge. Okay, sorry about that, Darren, I interrupted you. But
No, that's okay. Yeah, that's helpful. I was going to ask you a question, but I first want to see if the audience has any questions. Any questions just around calculators, return on investment? You might be thinking, really, Chip? I don't know. I'm too small. It doesn't affect me. I might be sitting here going, I'm Jeff or Jerry, and I have potentially hundreds of employees. This seems too good to be true from a results perspective, but how do I get there? Questions, guys?
Yes, I would jump in and just say it's Jeff here. Yeah, it's a bit about the how, right? I think that's the question. It's the data is not. I don't question it. I'm actually not overly surprised, but yeah, just be interested to get some more insight into the how part. So.
Awesome question, Jeff. So we're going to show a little piece on the back end of this of what we've been doing with some companies, and it's just a small excerpt of the how. So A, we're going to try to cover that off. B, I just noted, Jeff, I'd gladly set up a conversation with you or a call with Chip and I, maybe just to walk through that piece around the how, because it's not a magic pill, or it's not a little, right? This is not shake and bake and put it in a microwave. There's a bunch of key pieces in there. We'd love to walk that through, but we will try to walk through just a few today. Chip, I don't know if you wanted to comment any further on the how to that.
So well, I'm always interested at the how, like there are a bunch of strategies. One of the big things is that as leaders, one of the things that is really helpful as we're working on the how is to get a better idea of reality. And I'm pausing there after saying reality, because as leaders, we fool ourselves into thinking we know and understand, for example, how we come across. Or we fool ourselves in terms of thinking, you know what, I communicated that already, so it's done, right? If I don't have something like an LPI, where I've got real life feedback from a bunch of people about how I come across and what some of my challenges are as a leader, I'm blind, right? I'm just continuing to do the same thing again and again, expecting a different result. But because I don't know that, for example, one of the big pieces of feedback I got from my LPI was that I was like a train. And that, so part of my challenge, remember when I told you about that manufacturing company I was running, I could get people on board, but I did it by pushing them. I did it by driving them myself, right? And so what I had to learn how to do as a leader was, how do I engage people so that even when I leave the room, when I'm not there, they will do even better than when I was there, which is that whole part of, and for us as leaders, it's understanding, okay, I need help to understand reality, which is to understand where I need to put the emphasis as a leader to change my behavior or adjust my strategy so that I'm paying attention to the things that are most important. And that can be with an LPI, with a juice check, for example, which is an employee engagement tool. It can be with a discovery audit, right? It can be just by you taking time to go around and interview a whole bunch of employees and get their feedback, right? What are we doing well at? What are we not doing well at? What should we do differently? What would you do if you were in my shoes, right? The challenge with that is saying, depending on your credibility as a leader and what your track record is with that, people may or may not tell you the truth, right? In most cases, they won't tell you the truth, but it can be still a valuable part of what you do in terms of gathering input so that you can get feedback. It's also really helpful to get feedback from customers. Helpful to get feedback from subtrades too, right? And that's all part of your mix of gathering input so that you understand reality and so that you are strategically then addressing the different pieces, right? Which there are 3 key pieces people need to have in order to make this work. You need to have clarity, we need to have alignment, and we need to have engagement, right? High engagement. And that's what we're looking for across the board throughout the company, right? And so just going to show you this and say, here's what happens in a company, right? All too often what happens is the owner starts out, so you can see that down at the bottom here. The owner starts out, we said, remember there are 3 key things we need. We need clarity, we need alignment, and we need engagement, right? 3 things we're looking for. So what happens? Well, we start out with an owner, and the owner is clear, right? But the owner really doesn't take the time to communicate that clarity to the rest of the team. So even though the owner is clear, and they're moving in this direction, what happens? It starts to break down as soon as you get to the supervisor level, right? Where the supervisor is kind of like saying, well, I kind of think this is what the expectations are. And I kind of think this is what's most important to the company. But I'm not really sure. So I'm just going to do what I've always done. And hopefully we'll get a decent result. What happens when that gets down to the front line? Well, the front line at that point is just saying, you know what, if I just keep my head down, right, and duck a little bit, right, then I won't get in any trouble. And that's what I'll do. I'm just putting in my time here. But see, what happens is that you end up with a whole bunch of frontline employees, right? And they are moving in all kinds of different directions. There's no synergy. There's no ability to create clarity about what's most important. And the net result is people are disengaged, right? What happens if you've got one supervisor, or in a larger company, right? Because you scale this up, you've got exactly the same stuff happening in a bigger company with way more layers. Like if you look at Jerry, right? Or you look at Jeff, Jeff has got the owners or the senior leaders, then he's got a senior team, then he's got functional teams like finance, HR, like a growing or greenhouse team, a sales team, right? If you've got somebody in your functional team, for example, that's a red from an engagement perspective, right? What do you think happens in the cascade all the way through the rest of the organization? They create reds all over the place, right? Because they undermine everything you're trying to do, right? And what happens, it's further compounded if you've got subcontractors out there. So if the subcontractors aren't aligned with what's most important all the way back here, right? Then you've got misses happening in your customer experience. You've got misses happening on what that subcontractor does for you because it's not aligned with what's most important for the company and the organization. So having, for example, a checklist of what's most important for subcontractors and recruiting subcontractors and giving them feedback on that. And also too, making sure you set it up so a subcontractor can really win in working with you are all part of the recipe to making this work, right? So it starts out with, Jeff, to your question, of saying, number one, getting a really good picture of reality. Number two, understanding that you can't address all these issues, right, at the same time. What you need to do is you need to strategically start picking them off and saying, okay, and that's why we start in the, what's your next smart move, is we say, do you have a core team, a core leadership team on board, right? That's that whole thing here, saying once you have that core leadership team, and if you can create alignment, starting with the owners, then starting with the senior team, so you have them aligned, pointing in the same direction, understanding what's most important to the owners and or whoever is running the company, right? So that they are cascading that message through the rest of the organization, then you've got a chance of dramatically improving your engagement. Then you've got a bunch of the recipes, but it's not straightforward and easy. It's a bunch of work, but it is worth the work, because once you get this going, it's an unstoppable machine.
Because yeah, look at, I just love, even Chip, I see what you're drawing out, and the more green arrows rowing in the same direction, it's just like it's like oil in the engine, right? Then it's just like, it's smoother versus people going off in disarray and confusion. And right, we saw this in a contracting company where, just as an example, the owner, it thinks he or she is so clear with, say, the purpose of the business and what the values of the business are, and says it once a year at a company kickoff meeting or something like that. And yet you got a frontline leader or a supervisor or a foreman on a job site confused around how to live out a certain value, and they continue year after year to experience frustration. I just love what you're saying here, Chip, is the frustration now also results in lack of engagement, which makes lack of productivity, which makes lack of results, profit, all the other things. It's a beautiful, very simple recipe. So I think, thanks for showing that pictorially too.
It's a simple recipe, but it's hard to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and when you think about we built a whole list of, okay, so what are all the tools you can use to drive this? Because it's everything from, for example, having your annual strategy meeting with your senior team. If you have an annual strategy meeting with the senior team, and at every quarter you have a quarterly tactical meeting about saying, okay, here's the 4 or 5 key goals we're striving for this year. Here's the tactical plan that we're going to work on together for the next quarter. That creates a dramatic lift in your alignment, right? Throughout the whole company, right? Once people understand how that works, once the functional team understand what's most important for your customers, what's most important for your team internally, right? I don't know how many times you run into in organizations the fight between ops and sales, right? Well, the fight between operations and sales is because operations doesn't understand the sales world, doesn't understand the sales priorities, and doesn't understand how that lines up with the business priorities, because no one's ever taken the time to explain it to them. So what you end up is ops does things their way, sales does things their way, right? You'd end up with a mismanaged customer experience, you end up with lost profitability and lost effectiveness, and the whole machine doesn't even get better or faster, or because there's no feedback loop from ops to sales to help them learn and make sure that their next pricing or their next job that they price is better, right? It's an example of a lack of alignment. And everyone gets frustrated and buys out in that process and say, what's the point? Those sales guys will never listen. They'll always do those dumb things, right? Or what's the point? Ops won't listen.
Chip, you mentioned a key word, and I've used it a few times today, feedback loop. Just for the sake of everyone, describe what that is, even from a smaller business and maybe in a larger organization.
Okay, so a feedback loop, if you look at it as say, so the people doing the work, right, or producing the product need to hear from the customer, ideally, right? So I can have them hook them up to the customer. So, I mean, it's a simple example. Fiona, from a simplest perspective, she runs a whole bunch of tutors. She runs any given month, she does 160 sessions a month, right? 7 or 8 different tutors. Well, one of the changes we just recently made in her business is we hooked it up so that the customers were giving feedback directly to the tutors. Once we did that, what do you think happened to the customer experience? It bumped. The customer experience went better, customer satisfaction went up, and customer retention went up, all because we got the people that were actually doing the work more feedback about what the customer liked and didn't like, and we actually did it in a way where it was real time. In the same way, when you look back on saying, as an example, when you're working in a construction business like you, Dave, for example, it's hugely helpful for your guys to hear what the customer's saying, what they liked, what they didn't like, what worked for them. Now, it's really more helpful if you're doing that, understanding your UVP, your unique value proposition, and what's most important. So you're not giving them miscellaneous feedback, but you're giving them feedback that's actually saying, you know what, they really appreciated the attention to detail, right? Because that's part of your UVP, right? They really appreciated the fact that we were communicating well and often with them, right? So you're looking to reinforce your values and your unique value proposition in that feedback loop, right? And you're looking to say, how do we get more people feedback on a regular basis in the company? Because that feedback is gold for people, right? And all too often people are not getting the feedback, so they don't know how to get better. If you have the right people, they want to get better, right? There's one last concept that's really helpful too that I was thinking about in terms of the people in your company. One of the things you are working on over time is this whole idea of
Sorry, Chip, that's too low. We can't see it.
okay. I'll put it up here then on the next flip chart.
Yeah, thanks.
And that is a concept called, anybody read No Rules? It's by a guy by the name of Reed. I forget his last name, but he's founder of Netflix, mid-90s, right? Netflix has been one of the companies that's grown dramatically, but one of the core things that they've done at Netflix is they work on something they call talent density, which for you guys out there too, it's saying, okay, I want to recruit the very best people that I can get for my company, and believing that if I have great people working here, they will attract other great people and they will actually perform better. Now, that's not to say we want to promote an elitism, but it does mean we want to have people that are really good at their jobs. We want to have them in the right seat of the bus. We want to set them up to be highly successful. And that over time, as we work on the talent density in our company to raise the level of talent, either by developing it and helping people learn and grow, but also too, by helping people who don't fit our company culture, who don't fit where we're going as an organization, to help them move on and go somewhere else, right? All that does, that increases your talent density. The talent density, right, then helps with your alignment. It helps with your engagement. it helps with your some of these other pieces, right? Because what happens oftentimes, if you've got a red person here from a senior team perspective, right, who's pulling in a different direction, who doesn't want to align, sometimes your only choice is to move them out. When you do that, that has a big impact on the whole rest of the team, right? Because that one person you'll often find, particularly if they're at a senior team, and I like that quote, it's another Peter Drucker quote, right? Another Peter Drucker quote, one to leave on, maybe here, is saying, a bad manager can take a good staff and destroy it, causing the best employees to flee and the remainder to lose all motivation. All right, 60% of employees said they would rather change out their leader than get a raise.
Chip, I got a last question for you. We got just a few minutes left here, and it's tied to a how. So it's a reversal way of asking a how. And in other words, what's getting in the way? What should I not be doing? Maybe just identifying, for instance, the leaks or the gaps. You and I put together this slide the other day. This is essentially also talking about a how. You want to walk us through this piece? Because it's essentially what's getting in the way for me to even get this rolling.
Yeah, so what's getting in the way? So thinking I've already arrived. Thinking I don't need to do this, right? Because I'm already doing a pizza once a month, or thinking that that's already addressed, right? So that would be getting in the way. Getting in the way would be people feeling like I'm not approachable as a leader. I'm not asking them for feedback, right? I'm not cultivating an environment in my company that's feedback rich, right? What else is getting in the way is,
I got the slide up there for us. Like we chatted about, if we do not have things poorly, like if they're poorly defined, for instance, our vision for our companies, our BHAGs, our purpose, right? Our values.
Right? If those are not clearly defined. Yeah. If I'm not consistent in reinforcing this stuff, when you look at something like creating company values are something you got to literally be on for 2 or 3 years before you will really have them ingrained in the company. And then you probably got to reinforce them every 2 or 3 months just to keep them top of mind. And you got to come up with unique ways to do that. We used to do skits where we demonstrate the values, or we would do catch an employee doing it right and recognize them at a site meeting, or so you've got to, if you don't take your values and translate them and say, okay, what does this practically mean on a work site, right? People are left with a value that sounds good, like having integrity, for example, but they don't know what that means for them and their job. If we don't support them, if I don't model the way as a leader, right, then that also undermines them.
And maybe Jeff, just to, we don't have time. We're going to run out of time today, but part of the how to what Chip was just saying is we work with companies so that you don't just have these beautiful values on a fancy poster in a boardroom, but now right through to the last person, you might say on a shop floor or in a truck, they understand how the values apply to them in their role, very specifically and practically. So right through to some, you might cheat sheets through, stickers on their lunch pail. But more importantly, right through their employee reviews, they have goals around those, but they have a boatload of clarity on now how does the company's vision and how do their values, how to align with mine, and how does that then what we call value descriptors, they form my behavior, right? Which ultimately creates that client experience. But I can show you guys more on that too. We won't have time today, but I love that whole piece of giving them practical tools so that they're clear on that. And then to Chip's point is supporting that every 2 to 3 months. Just as an example, we're working with a company right now where every 2 weeks they have a 5-minute exercise where somebody on the team has to witness something they've seen in the last 2 weeks of another employee living out one of those values. It's like, hey, Pete Hansma, here's something that happened in the shop. Here's what I saw that he was doing. It's high fives all around. But way more importantly, because I've been part of those meetings, seeing the eyes light up in these employees, that they start to remember their values, but they actually start to put meat, flesh on the bones, you might say, of how do I live that out? So that's always exciting and just a practical way to gain some traction. Again, just as summary, Chip, is they have clarity of what they are, first of all. They're aligned to themselves and the team's aligned, and now we gain their hearts and the engagement starts growing too.
Yep, and that's, I think, partly too is figuring out ways to keep score that's meaningful for employees, right? It's amazing to see what a meaningful tool it is if you don't need to measure a lot, but measuring a few things can have a dramatic impact on employee engagement, right? Setting them up for a game that they can win at. Cool. Any more questions, guys?
No, I just wanted to say it's Jeff again. Just thanks for that, Chip and Darren. I did actually make one of those difficult changes last week with the management group at Freeman's, which I would think you guys would be aware of. But yeah, so the how is kind of interesting, and it's very much in line with the process I'm on. So, and it is already showing dividends. So, if anybody has any questions about that, I can certainly share or shed some light. But yeah, it's been a challenging week anyways, but yeah, you can already see the culture is already coming back to life. It's kind of cool. So the house, it was good. It's right in line with the road I'm on and what we're doing. So it's pretty cool. So thanks for that, Chip. Appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jeff. You know what's interesting, guys, just in the summary here, I know I'm going to repeat it again, but Proverbs 27:23. Pete Hansma, you probably know this, right? I've been saying this has been the theme this year, but isn't that beautiful? Know well the condition of your flocks and pay special attention to your herds. It's like, isn't this at the heartbeat of being a Christ-minded, sharp business person? Is ultimately, Chip, you were saying the other day, is it all comes down to love. This is driven by love, my motivation of engaging people and having their hearts. It's not just about profit or numbers, right? Chip, you want to maybe just end this off, this piece just around
Sure.
love?
So I think, so if we end this thing, so if I had, so the issue is not as much, guys, coming up with all the perfect strategies or tactics, but it's deciding the what, deciding that, you know what, I am going to pursue this strategy of really building a great culture. I am going to pursue a strategy of investing in my people. And I'm going to do that because I'm looking out for their best interests. I'm looking to genuinely love them, right? So what does it say? It says they will know we are Christians by our love, right? So we're to demonstrate that we are Christians by how we love people. And what better way to love people, I think, than to really try and help them be successful. And I want to help them be successful by being really clear about who we are as a company, about what we are about how they can be successful here and how we can support them, right? Not carry them, but how we can create long-term opportunity for them to live out and be their best selves, right? And that really is, I think, a recipe for how do I love people at work and really try and set them up to be successful.
Thanks for that, Chip. Hey, anybody else have any other comments? Otherwise, Chip, could you just close out in prayer for these guys?
Yeah. So God, I thank you for the opportunity and the great calling we have to be in business, and the opportunity we have to make a difference for our employees, for our customers, for our suppliers, God, and to genuinely love them. And God, I just pray for wisdom and insight. I was just thinking about, even people in Jeff's situation where he's got to make a tough call about somebody, but then also too, to care for the rest of the team in that situation and to help them understand the journey that we're going on and how we really do want to invest in our people and help them to develop to their full potential. We just pray that you would bless the work of our hands today. Pray that for people that need work or that need opportunity, God, we just pray that you would show us how to love them too. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I'll see, hopefully,